Welcome to this webinar. It will be dedicated to the European platforms for the promotion of emerging artists. My name is Yohann Floch. I'm the director of operations at On the Move. On the Move is the European network dedicated to the circulation of artists and cultural professionals. As you may know, we are supported by the Creative Europe program and the French Ministry of Culture, and we gather 80 members from 29 countries. So today, together with my colleague Marie Le Sourd, the Secretary General, and Bernardo Queiroz, the communication officer, will be hosting this webinar. For participants with visual impairment, I just need to say that I'm a white man in my mid-40s. I have white, I mean, graying hair, and I'm wearing orange reading glasses today. Um, Look, I'm gonna start with a little housekeeping. So throughout the webinar, we kindly ask you to keep your camera and sound turned off. We will be, of course, opening the floor later on, and we will welcome all your comments and questions already. You can start posting comments and questions and during the entire conversation. Um, we will have only our panelist and reporter on cameras, with camera and sound during their different speech. Um, so please don't hesitate to post your comments and questions during the entire conversation. Um, so this webinar is dedicated to a very famous EU scheme, European platforms, a scheme that have been existing for many years at European level under the Creative Europe program, and a scheme that has evolved over time to better support the young and emerging artists, but also to make sure that these young and emerging artists and all the cultural stakeholders supporting them embrace, new challenges and new priorities, political priorities that have been proposed or tackled at European level. We organized this webinar in the lead up of the 2025 edition of the On the Move Cultural Mobility Forum. So this is a first, what we call pre-forum webinar, and there will be two other pre-forum webinars. And we decided to propose these webinars because there's so many questions and so many issues to be discussed when we talk about to support the young and emerging artists. And we realized very quickly that the Dramaturgy, our upcoming forum in Riga on the 29th and 30th of April, will not be able to accommodate all the topics and all the issues we want to raise. So we decided to propose this and to make sure that we invite the experts in our conversation to be able to talk about all the challenges and needs of young artists, but also all the challenges and needs of the that might be new or revisited because of the pandemic, because of all the conflicts that we observe, and all the new challenges that we face as a society. So today we invited Riga-based members of Creative Europe funded platforms. And all of them are, of course, very much involved in supporting the circulation of emerging artists and their works. And today, collectively, we would like to ask many questions on the scheme itself, how well it works and how well it supports the needs and challenges of the new generation of creators, but also what are the limitations and how we could collectively come with ideas and recommendations, not only towards the scheme, but also in general to ourselves, to the cultural sector, to make sure that we better accompany the young and emerging professionals. So together with me today, I have the immense pleasure to have a really interesting, fascinating community as professionals. And I want to briefly introduce them to you. And I will start with Iveta Gabalina is a curator, an artist, and an educator. She's been working in Riga for many years for ISSP, a platform that is promoting, presenting, and supporting photographers. And ISSP has become a member in 2022 of Futures Photography, so the Europe-based photography platforms, which support emerging artists, but also mid-career artists. What is interesting, I feel, with this platform is we will be discussing the um, notion of career and career development. And we will be asking, I mean, I will be probably asking what kind of support and networking experiences they will be proposing in the platform. Our second contributor today is Odrija Kalve. Odrija is working for Riga Circus in Riga, a venue that hosts and support contemporary circus, but also contemporary performance. And Odrija has been a curator and an arts manager for many years, working for festivals like Riga, but also contributing to Nordic, the Baltic Nordic Circus Network. And she's representing Riga Circus in the Circus Next platforms, so the EU platforms dedicated to supporting authors, young and emerging authors in the contemporary circus field. So very happy to have you here, Odrija. Our third panelist is the poet, architect, and event curator Efe Duyan. Efe is a poet that has been publishing in many poems and books that have been translated in 25 languages. He is working at passing residencies across the globe, including in America, and he's been very active to support the translation of poetry into Turkish. He teaches architecture in Riga, but he also co-organizes the Page Break Festival, who is a member of the Versopolis platform, so this EU platform dedicated to supporting young and emerging poets. And again, here we will be talking about this young and emerging aspect. And our last panelist is Dina Suhanova. He's an architect and a researcher at the Institute of Contemporary Art, Design and Architecture, the Art Academy of Latvia. She's been an editor, a curator, a researcher, and she's been leading many projects and summer schools as she's an expert in the field of architecture education. And she's currently contributing to the professional master's program in architecture, the Art Academy of Latvia. And of course, is here to flag the colors of this EU-supported platform called LINA, dedicated to architecture. So we will be having discussions, and I will be asking like many questions to these four panelists, but also I will be relying on our Rapporteur, Clara Passarinho. Clara is a performance artist based in Portugal, but working internationally. And she's been also an art manager, co-founding the Associação da Minha Rua in Portugal, leading educational projects. She joined the Pop the Vote program and to support the European elections. But she's also a member of Culture Action Europe. And Clara will be listening our exchanges, all the questions and answers, and she will be providing at the end of this webinar her takeaways. And I'm looking forward to have the voice of a young and brilliant artist and arts manager to come with her own perspective on our conversation. So, welcome to all the participants. Again, you have seen the program. I know that my colleagues, Marie and Bernardo, will be posting web links in the chat, including the biographies of our panelists and rapporteur. So don't hesitate to access them to have more information on their profile. I've been speaking a lot, and I think it's time for me to, to ask a question, finally, to the panelists. And I will start with this question. Touch already upon the idea that your EU platforms are supporting young and emerging artists. Recently, at On the Move, we published the 2025 Cultural Mobility Yearbook. And as part of this yearbook, which, present all the trends of the international circulation of artists, we had a particular chapter or section focusing on young and emerging artists. And we realized that we had a lot of trouble to define what is young and emerging. So maybe we should start here, because you working in different fields and for different and contributing to the work of different EU platforms, you might come also with a different definition. So expecting that for you, for example, Efe, in poetry, what is young and emerging might be quite different. So Efe.
Yeah, thanks, Johan. Well, in the case of Versopolis that I'm here informally representing, um, it doesn't mean the same thing. Our definition of emerging poets is not necessarily young. And I think this is because of the nature of international poetry scene, where it is quite difficult to reach out to different scenes, different languages, and read the poetry of from different countries. So how we define emerging is internationally emerging. And in poetry scene, it is usually seen natural, if not necessarily true, but it's natural. At first, you gain some national recognition, and then as a second step, you start to your poetry starts to circulate on the international scene, and it it is also practical because in order to reach out an international audience, you need to have proper translations, which is a difficult thing to get actually, and for that you need this maybe previous national recognition. So in our case, we simply define it as emerging, like, but not we don't have any age restrictions in that regard, uh, so that a poet who is becoming internationally well known and gathering more and more interest, and but not having already few books in different languages. So that is our emerging definition in that regard. And well, in our case, young means more like not an age thing, but more about your attitude and soul.
I like this, the attitude and soul. When preparing this conversation, you were telling me it's quite rare to have poets under 25, which is a very interesting, statement in a way, because if I turn towards Odrija in the circus field, because of the virtuosity dimension, because of the technicality dimension and the physicality of the art form, I imagine that many of the young emerging are young, but maybe you have a different take on this.
Well, actually, it's quite similar what Efe just said about the poetry. Within Circus Next platform, the age is not how we look at the merging. Well, you need to be at least 18 years old to apply, but there is no age restriction how old you should be. Well, the oldest. And so it's a question of professional recognition uh, at the European level. So for Circus Next platform, you can apply if with your first or second creation, if you are from France, Belgium, or Netherlands. And you can apply even with your third creation if you are from other countries. And it also matters how widely you have toured with your previous creations. And yeah, and also how much financial support you have received for previous creations. That's the criteria for emerging. So if you are not well-known celebrity, you're emerging.
That's interesting. So I guess it's very welcoming, the definition of emerging, which is reassuring. Maybe I can ask very quickly the same question to Dina and Iveta. So maybe Dina first, in terms of architecture, what is young and emerging for you?
Yes, hello everybody. It's a great honor and also responsibility to represent the LINA platform. So I'll try to answer. Yes, for LINA, age is there's no age restriction for somebody to become a fellow and to apply as a fellow, and it's similar as previously Efe and Odrija were telling, that basically what matters is your ideas, and if you aim to apply for the network and for the platform, this is opportunity to put yourself or kind of aim for this international visibility and put yourself and your ideas and show yourself. But speaking about the architecture in general, we can say that young architects are usually somewhere around 40 still. So if you are 40, you're still a young architect.
Okay. Interesting. And for you, Iveta, for things at Futures platform?
Hello, and nice meeting you all. Well, yeah, it's kind of the same with all the other fields. But what I would like to add, which was interesting when we were selecting our futures artists and thinking about this term emerging, we realized that geographical location does matter as well when you think about this term, because not all the countries have similar possibilities in terms of exhibitions and also financial support. So naturally, and similarly, as Audrey already mentioned, in some countries, this term emerging artist will be a bit different than in others, just because of this possibilities that countries offer on an international scale. So that's from my side. Thank you.
That's very interesting to see that not only the definition is would say sectoral or art form based, but also informed by many other contextual elements. The countries where the young artists operate in, or the ecosystem, their past experience. So many informations are fitted in to be able to, in a way, support or select the individuals and the collectives that might be supported later on in the platform program. I mean, it's not very often that On the Move focuses on EU schemes. As you may know, On the Move is a very international outreach and try to address conversation that are relevant in many different contexts and try to have these ones on board. At the same time, these EU platforms are usually active over the EU 27, as we know. Creative Europe spans over 40 Creative Europe countries, including Caucasus countries like Georgia or South Mediterranean countries like Tunisia. And we also know that many of the artists or individuals and collectives supported by platforms are EU based, but they don't mean they are EU nationals. So there is a lot of flexibility in the way we interpret the schemes. Um, what is interesting in these schemes for somebody like me who has been around for many, many years and has observed the evolution of this EU support program is that I feel we have been asking the EU platforms to address many, many issues, and not only to support the young and emerging, but also to address many EU priorities that go beyond just supporting the young and emerging. And I will come back later to it. As you indicated when you were describing the criteria or your interpretation of young and emerging, we could see, we could see that you were trying to make sure that the ones that would benefit the EU platform support would be the right or the best qualified person. We know that you open calls for participation and calls for applications regularly. And that's part of the work that you have to do as a member of a platform. You need to probably read a lot of applications and to actually go through a lot of material to make sure that you select the candidates that deserve this support. I am sure that during this application process and selection process, you go through motivation letters. And this is another question I would like to ask you. What do you feel are today's motivation to apply to EU platforms? What the young and emerging artists say they need the most? Uh, who would like to start? Maybe I can throw the ball to Iveta um, and start to hear you.
If I understood the question correctly, like who would be the ones who would apply for the platforms?
It's more about the motivations. What do the applicants say they are motivate with when they apply to the opportunities you all provide?
I think in our case, it's the possibility of amplifying the visibility of artists' work. And also, of course, like this personal connection with the professionals from the field, it in at least like in the arts field, it's very important. Like one thing is to create fantastic works, but a lot of things, as we know, happens because of personal connection. And then these platforms, like in our case, it really gives the opportunity to meet people in present, to have the conversation, to show their works, and not only to the professionals, but also to meet fellow artists and to exchange the ideas. So it's a really vivid scene and also a lot of like very inspirational theme as well. So that there are many I think motivations like why to apply to these platforms. But yeah, one of the most important one is to get to be more visible and to get more in contact, to get real contact.
Mhm, mhm. That's interesting. Thank you. Maybe Efe also, you would like to comment this in terms of motivations to apply to Versopolis. What are
Mhm.
they?
The motivations of the young poets to apply Versopolis.
Yes, yeah,
Well,
yes.
yeah, it is about seeing yourself in another language's mirror. So you see, when you are translated, first of all, your poem becomes something else. It's a creative process. And it changes, it's not like, I mean, maybe you can take a photograph or a movie like as it is to another countries, but you cannot do it with the language, with the fiction, with poetry. So it is a chance to see you in another context, within the mechanisms and opportunities and limits of another language and also culture. So that's why I think it's looking at a convex mirror, and which can teach you a lot about yourself also. And this is one thing about yourself. And second thing is, for example, that really happened to me like a while ago when I first started to travel abroad some 15, 16 years ago, is that I realized world poetry is an ocean, and but it's a very dark ocean. You cannot just go and read a book written, published in either Romania or Poland or Germany. There's a limit of the languages that you can read, right? And there are 100 languages at least where great poetry is written, or at least very interesting poetry is written. So it's a big mystery. And without like touching, you don't realize how fascinating can be.
Well, that's interesting that you.
It's an adventure of discovering, let's say, new lands of poetry.
Mhm. Yeah, I like the image of the ocean also, as we try and as probably many young and emerging, we try to navigate, our ecosystem and to
Mhm.
learn from peers. And there is probably in these meeting with peers a lot of warmth. The idea that you meet colleagues, not competitors, which is also
Exactly.
probably something interesting. Odrija, maybe you want to also answer this question. What are the main motivations for young artists to apply to Circus Next?
I think for those who know what the Circus Next is, they know that this platform has been a significant boost for many artists. And of course, it's visibility, recognition. These are opportunities to get residencies, to showcase your works, even if they are still in work in progresses. This is what the platform supports and does together, all the platform members and the organization. And yeah, and of course, there is this co-production grant, of course. Maybe it's not that big, but still it is something, and you need this financial support if you want to create a show.
Absolutely. Thank you, thank you. It is true that yes, the visibility of the platforms, I mean, the recognition aspect or the quality label is very strong, I guess, for all the EU platforms. So to be selected is already a significant recognition or part of a recognition pathway that is very leading to many other opportunities potentially. For you, Dina, how do you see the motivations of the young emerging architects? Are the main ones?
So interestingly, and maybe people doesn't know it, but LINA is actually abbreviation for learn, interact, and network in architecture. So basically, those are probably the things young and emerging practitioners, thinkers are looking for. And it's a platform which connects established institutions with those what we call emerging practitioners and thinkers. Sometimes they are, and I can see that in the meetings and events organized by LINA, and sometimes they are not even that young. And it's a great value that there are people of different generations. And what we can see is that they are, of course, looking for this networking opportunities. This is a fantastic opportunity to get in contact with established institutions around the Europe. Well, we can see that also after their period of fellowship is over, they still continue to cooperate. Even it's not only with those institutions, but also they find different ways to cooperate among each other. Like the fellows also cooperate. these are, I think, new friendships, and yes, I think the contacts with these established institutions are very important. Of course, also the opportunity to develop your own project, to develop your idea is very important, and of course the financial means to do that. And this is, I think, very crucial. Otherwise, maybe those ideas are just left to die and couldn't be realized and developed. So I think financial aspect is also very important, and the ability to get the grant or financial remuneration and have your mobility supported is very important for young people as well.
Then, I mean, to continue with you, Dina, what do you feel are the limitations? Because it feels like what you're presenting is when you access a platform. I mean, I have the feeling when I listen to you, like you access the nirvana, no? You have the access to everything. I mean, the contacts, the brand, and visibility, recognition, peers your age, peers older than you. I mean, you have the full, boom. It's winning the lottery, it feels like. And I don't want to diminish the work of the platforms, but I'm sure there are limitations. Limitation because you don't have endless funding, limitations because also of the nature of the funding that you are distributing, and also because probably you cannot support as many people as you would like, etc. I mean, there are limitations. So could we open that door, the door of the limitation? What is that you cannot do as a platform, and it is frustrating?
Yeah, from my point of view, and also seeing or talking to people already been for some time in the platform, of course, the financial support is always maybe not enough. That is of course true, and sometimes if you apply as a group, not only as an individual but as a collective with your idea, of course you cannot be supported. Not everybody in the group can be supported, and this means that it's simply not enough funds for that. Yes, sometimes also the ambitions to realize the idea and the project is maybe too ambitious to be realized within this within the project period, or within the financial support which could be allocated. Yeah, there are, of course, we can see also the economy. The inflation is going up, and so yeah.
And frustration links to finances.
Yeah, it also, and maybe to add, it also depends on each person individually, how he or she can also establish herself or himself. How easy for somebody is to communicate, how easy is to talk to others, how easy they are able to kind of network. So sometimes for people this is not a natural thing, and this is also sometimes a struggle, because a lot of depends on how well you can communicate, how comfortable you are with the other people, talking with those representatives from different institutions. So this is also a challenge individuals need to overcome.
Social dimension is important, and the intercultural competencies, I imagine. How is it for you, Iveta, in terms of seeing, frustrations or the limitations, where they are in the platforms like Futures, and for you as a member?
Well, I think these limitations also are connected with the aims of the platform. So what do we actually promise these young artists? And of course, from one hand, it gives an opportunities. But the question is, as also already Dina mentioned, like, can the person, individual person, use these opportunities? This is one. Like, how still, like, being in platform, it doesn't necessarily guarantee you exhibitions or acceptance in residencies or some collaborations if you are not really active person. So the human skills still matters even if you are in a platform. But then the other things, I don't know, of course, how the other platforms operates, but Futures, it's a huge, let's say, collection of fantastic artists. But it's not like 10, 20, 50, it's like hundreds of artists actually. And all of them are really high. Yeah, I would say the qualities of works are amazing. But even within the scope of the Futures platform, it's a massive competition. And just being there, yes, it is an opportunity, but it doesn't guarantee you necessarily some like practical outcomes. There is a financial support, but it's of course quite limited. And then all of the selected artists, the year when they are selected, they come to this annual meeting and they get to meet each other and experience this 3 or 4 days. But besides that, it's also somehow written in I don't know where. And then from my side, like being on an other side, like from the institutional side, I would love to work with all the artists I meet, but it's just physically impossible. So what I can do from my side is that we try to keep long-time relationships with the artists we select, and then keep them in mind and try to offer them other opportunities that we might offer as an institution. So some artists that we have selected for the Futures, they also later on have a show at ISSP Gallery or take part in the residency, but of course not everyone, because our resources also are limited. So thank you.
Oh, I understand. It makes sense that you are, in a way, in a process where you try to support as much as possible, also in terms of afterwards or after, over time, as we say. And it feels like I mean, it is interesting that there is an amount of people involved that is also quite big. It is as if the scheme, the EU scheme, that is quite ambitious, also in supporting at least 50 emerging artists a year, etc., imposes, in a way, a volume that is sometimes difficult to manage. But I don't know, maybe Efe and Odrija, you have a different perspective on this. Maybe Efe, do you want to start?
Like about the how difficult or easy it is to manage the
Yeah.
well, as I said, I think the larger the locations we can reach out, the number of the locations we can reach out, the better, because it gives us more opportunities to explore. Any time a young artist visits an international gathering, for example, I consider this as a moment of mind opening. And in a way, and going back also to this limitation issue, in a way, it is it implies the limitless opportunities of writings, at least in poetry. I mean, poetry has the same practical infrastructure for 3,000 years, right? You need a pen, you need a paper, and you have like, one might think, okay, everything has been done, but it's not true. So, and the moment that you realize this and there are limitless possibilities is the moment that you go somewhere else, you see something which was strange to you, which was unknown to you, that you are discovering at that moment. And that implies the unlimited possibilities of creation. And in that regard, in Versopolis, we also try to expand our borders and try to include as many languages as possible and create this pool of various languages, various countries, cities, and festivals so that each member can invite and each emerging artist can visit. So I think in that regard, the traffic is a positive aspect. So we try to increase the traffic.
Mhm. Like it. You increase the traffic. And for you, Odrija, maybe on this, these limitations, as we were talking about the limitations, also the volume aspect. Oh, how do you feel it works or doesn't work in the circus field?
Um, yeah, I think there is this one thing which maybe artists, authors doesn't think when they apply for Circus Next. What will happen after Circus Next when there will be no where the support will be finished by the platform. If they will have ability to do their next show. So that is why there is one important criteria for the platform in the selection process to ask artists and to see the ability to position themselves as authors and to see their necessity to create. And that I think is very important because there is no guarantee that that after the Circus Next there will be the project will be realized and it will be on the stage, because for Circus Next is enough to have those work in progresses, and it's good if you mention the date of premiere, but if it's not happening, then it's not happening. And also, I think for artists is very challenging. One thing which Circus Next cannot really control, this balance between artistic freedom and market reality. Because, of course, Circus Next is very open to innovation and like very artistic things, but the reality is like it is. Not all of audiences are ready for a very artistic piece. They want to be entertained, and this is also a question for venues and which are also members of platform, if they can program the show, because maybe their audience won't understand it, because there are really crazy things come out from this Circus Next platform, and we are very happy that artists are so creative, but when they need to distribute the show, not to accept them.
Understand. And this is you raising an important point, which leads me to the last question I had for you. Probably not everybody can answer it because I know the time is limited, and I really want to open the floor in very few minutes. But it's the idea that when going through how the EU platforms are conceived today, and especially with the last call, where you could feel there are a quite rigid framework. Even for applicants, you really needed to feel very, very, very precise ways to operate, work packages, and etc. I mean, there is a rigidity, even if this rigidity is a perception, but there is some sort of rigidity in the way the European platforms are conceived, in their goals, in the way they should operate, the percentage of the money that should go in this activity or that activity. I mean, there you have a perception of rigidity, and at the same time, it is a EU scheme, a support programs that is really ambitious in addressing many other transversal issues. And I'm thinking at-risk and displaced artists. I'm thinking the climate crisis. I'm thinking gender equality, and many, transversal priorities that are burning issues for society at large, but also for many, many artists and for many cultural stakeholders are just like us today. And I'm wondering how, this lack of flexibility or perceived, rigidity can actually go towards rethinking models, rethinking the way we operate or the way the ecosystem operates. And I'm wondering how far you feel the support program, particularly, is able to, really change the way we think, we operate, or if we are repeating the same framework and the same old way to produce circus and tour circus, the same old way to, recognize young poets and having books and translation, etc. The same old way to support photographers and to deal with markets and galleries and recognition. How do you feel about this? Is this scheme adequate, or is this scheme limited in that sense also? Whoever wants to talk.
Okay, then
Nobody wants to talk. Efe,
I
you go.
jump in then quickly. Yeah,
Yeah.
just to save you. Well, I think first of all, it's somehow expected because at least Creative Europe or Erasmus Plus or yeah, Horizon Europe, for example, these are centralized programs continent-wide. So I think some level of administrative workload is expected because it's very different than say United States scene where you wouldn't find any centralized grants like this. There are no federal grants that you can apply. It's very decentralized. But there is also an advantage because it's sort of not sort of it's practically reachable by every single person. So that's the advantage. And I think in recent years, I don't know when exactly this change happened, but I think there's a recent focus on the outputs and deliverables and less accounting. So I think it was a shift towards the right direction, where you prioritize the content and the creation over technicalities, and that works quite well with art initiatives, I would say.
Mhm. Interesting. We focus more on the results and the outputs and outcomes than the way the finances or the money is spent, etc. Which is
Yeah, let I mean I'm finding myself in the recent years more thinking about the outputs and deliverables and the content and what the actual objective is rather than piling up invoices and stuff, and I think there's a direction towards that. I feel I might be wrong, of course. I'm only having my own perspective, but I'm encouraging the European Commission to to move towards that way. So in that
focus on
regard,
contents.
yeah.
Yeah. And for the others, do you feel the space taken by the other emergency issues, not only the support to young and emerging artists, which is like an emergency issue always, but the other transversal emergencies to address much? climate change, and the ecological transition, the well-being of artists and the general population? Do you feel other emergencies are taking over, colliding, feeding the work? Nobody?
I
Odrija?
might
Yeah, Iveta?
add
Yes?
something. I don't know if it replies to your question, but I've been thinking, first of all, when we go through the portfolios, it naturally reflects the state we are in. So it brings up all the emerging issues. And of course, like those artists who work with those actual topics, they most obviously will be probably chosen by the members. But there's another thing which I've been thinking about, this mobility thing, that the platform actually um, um, urges us to be mobile and to meet, and then at the same time a lot of artists, they deal with ecological issues, and actually mobility is not really good for the planet. So there is this controversies between within the structure of the program itself, because it encourages the mobility, but then the artists come to like 50 artists, and the members, like 20 members or even more, once a year they gather in and travel to those meeting places. And then of course the artist asks, like, but where is this awareness, like ecological awareness, like do we do it right? So there is a bit of conflict on this side as well, like where do we find the balance between what we really try to communicate and what are our actions. And of course, like when preparing the event, we always think about ecological footprint, and also like all these gender issues as well. How do our artists will feel in a specific geographical locations? Is it safe for them, etc., etc.? But yeah, it's not perfect, but then again, like who want to be in a perfect world? Thank you.
Thank you, Iveta. Thank you. I think it's time for me to open the floor and to see if some participants would like to share their views also on these questions, but also to comment or to ask direct questions to our panelists. I've tried to see in our chat if some of the participants posted comments. And for at the moment, I see only one, maybe, from Brig. I'm not sure I pronounced this right. Uh, um, a comment that I can read, or if Brig, you want to take the floor, I mean, you can always raise your digital hand so we can see you and I can open the floor for you. Or otherwise, I just read it. Okay, I read it. Brig was posting this comment. As an emerging artist, my motivation comes from seeing how a piece can reflect its time and how restaging it plays out in practice. But let's be real, travel resources and financial support are shrinking fast. These days, only a lucky few can even afford a vacation, let alone move internationally for work. Restrictions are tighter, and navigating the systems take more than just ambition. It takes backing from people and institutions that actually know how to make it happen. So I don't know if you want to maybe react to this comment and to let me know. Efe, yes?
The Beyond Europe collaborations are a topic that we discuss, and we have initiatives that kickstart this kind of collaboration. For example, we are now working a US Versopolis collaboration, a bridge, and we are visiting once or twice a festival beyond Europe in a different continent, and we are certainly trying to open some channels South Asia is obviously one of the focus places in that regard. South Korea, Singapore, Vietnam, Taiwan. Although there are technical difficulties because underneath the, at least the rules that we are part of, we cannot really pay for artists from outside of Europe, let's say, or more or less so. But our platforms here are not our main institution, so it's just part of our institution. So underneath our platform, as I mentioned, we try to create initiatives and try to create these bridges. I think it's very important to also promote European poetry outside of Europe and also see and understand what's going on in the world, because geographical borders are in the end drawn with a pen on a paper.
Thank you, Efe. I think you answer somehow also two comments that we received. One from Hang Nguyen, who is from Vietnam and operating the Artist in Residence Vietnam network. And she was wondering how these, the programs, the work programs of the EU platforms are collaborating with artists or networks outside of Europe. So I guess this is, part of, you partially answered that effect in terms of the capacities to cover cost for artists and collectives based outside the 40 Creative Europe countries. And there was also another question from a Senegalese participant, Amadou Bambadiaye, who was wondering if these opportunities were open to artists again outside of 40 Creative Europe countries. And I guess not if you are based outside of the 40 Creative Europe countries, but if you are based in Europe, there's no nationality issue, of course, and you can definitely apply to these programs. If I go back to the comment of Brig, my interpretation was more in relation to. I felt that Brig was mentioning the shrinking support at local or national level in a way, and that there was the necessity almost to apply to these European opportunities because the resources were very scarce, local, national level, and it feels like many political decisions go in that direction. Do you have the same reading of the landscape, especially because you see so many? I mean, you interact with many European colleagues. So do you have the same appreciation of the situation? Maybe Odrija or Dina on this?
Maybe I can reflect on this. I have been talking to some of the participants which have been part of, for instance, LINA community, and also others, other young architects or designers who have been taking part or studying, for instance, abroad. What happens when they return home? And that is a super big issue for them, is that after this or that funding ends, they basically don't have any way how to establish themselves at their home country, or how do they base them? How do they continue further with their artistic or work, or how do they establish the practice? Because many of them actually want to return, either after the studying abroad, either being in the residency, or having been supported through these platforms. So this is a big question for young people. Yeah, I hear it very, very often, and we would like to those people actually have this opportunity to come home, to share their experience, to establish their practice, to continue working in relation to their ideas or projects or whatever. So, yeah.
Thank you. This is very interesting. How do we? It connects very much to what Odrija was saying in terms of the long term, or what happens after you are part of such initiatives. I can see in the chat that many people are starting to post comments and questions. Maybe I give the floor directly to Nicolas Bertrand. Nicolas, if you can open your camera and mic and directly share your comments with everybody.
Yes, Yohann, I cannot open my camera. Oh, yes, it works.
Yes, I can see you.
Thank you very much for those very interesting experiences. No, just to share a few words about a project that I coordinate, which is not a platform, but a cooperation, large-scale cooperation supported by the Creative Europe program. This is called Sustainable Emerging. It has been for now a bit more than 10 years supporting young musicians in the early music field. Early music is Baroque, Renaissance, and medieval music. So this is a very Eurocentric approach. It is also very Western at the moment because the big schools are in European Western countries. What we do is to support ensembles, so artists working together, like for circus circus groups, and individuals also sometimes. And my question is well, we exist the project started 11 years now, and what I see is that it has been changing quite a lot. In several ways. First, because the partners themselves, the festivals, venues that are involved into it, the group has been changing, not that much, but in the way and the why, maybe they support young artists. So they found after more than 10 years, maybe a bit more of conviction that it's not only about supporting artists, but it's also about changing this specific sector of early music. And the motto is now less competition, more cooperation, which is something that is becoming rather important. And we see it also has an effect on them in the way they consider not only the European level, but also the local level. And the second point, the second question is how also the various platforms that has been presented are analyzing the changes that are happening after maybe 10 years, 15 years, etc., in their specific sector, so in circus, in architecture, etc. How do they appreciate this change? How do they also eventually change the way they support artists? And how do they appreciate the diversity of situations? Because being an artist in France or an artist in Bulgaria is rather different. That's it, Yohann.
Thank you, Nicolas. That's a long question.
Yes, sorry.
That's two questions in one. But if Iveta, Odrija, Dina, Efe, if you want to comment on one of them.
I can maybe say about the diversity of artistic and cultural landscapes. Yes, for the selection, it's actually a very hard process it's challenging process to ensure equal opportunities for all the applicants because they come from different backgrounds and from different regions. And then, I don't know, for example, in France, there are a lot of circus schools. The circus scene is well established, whereas in the Baltic states, this contemporary circus is still in its beginnings. and we don't have higher education schools. So these projects that come in are very different. And yeah, but we try to maintain this diversity so that as much as possible countries are visible within this finalist selection. And regarding the other question, which was that? I had some comment on it.
There is the impact over time on the ecosystem itself, how the EU platforms are, or EU projects are, in a way, changing gradually the ecosystem itself, and purposely or sometimes not purposely, but how the systemic impact of the EU platform, and some of them have been existing for many years now.
Yeah, Circus Next platform is changing all the time. Like every European selection meeting, we are discussing how to make this platform better for the authors and for us. We always discuss the way how we select authors and how many there should be in the final, and so it's all constantly something is changing in order to elaborate the platform's work, and it's like normal way how to see things, I think.
Yeah, I can say the same for LINA, and here, of course, is all the credit is to the small team from University of Ljubljana, Faculty of Architecture. But I think they have established very kind of inclusive system, how they lead the platform, how they communicate, and there's also opportunity always to reach out to them, talk to them, and also for members, it's always opportunity to be part of decision making. So, of course, when the community grows, there are a lot of different issues that comes up, but so you have to be always able to adapt and to change. And I can say that, for instance, regarding the fellows, it's quite competitive. There are more than 500 applications, at least in the previous cycle, and only 28 are selected. So that's it's becoming very, very, very popular, and yes, there are also many challenges that should be addressed, and so good job for the small team that can actually do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's thank you, Dina and Odrija, for this. It feels like sometimes the EU platforms are victim of their success, and there is an enormous and an increasing amount of applicants or young and emerging artists that are in need of such services, and the opportunities are a bit, of course, not increased. So there is an inadequation here. And maybe this is going back to Brig's comment around what you don't find at local or national level, you try to find it at EU level, and then you tend to apply to what's existing, and not many opportunities maybe are existing across Europe, and especially in some regions of Europe that are less privileged. We won't have the time to take all the questions, but I can see in the chat that there were, a couple of emerging artists posting questions directly in relation to opportunities that might exist. And my colleague Marie not only posted your own platforms, but we can also share information about all the other platforms. the European Commission has published the 19 EU platforms that are sorted and opening many opportunities for artists. So this is an information that is important. Of course, on the move, you will find many other opportunities to work internationally. So we signpost around 600 open calls for application targeting artists and cultural professionals every year. I would say that probably a large percentage of these EU international opportunities have EU funding, which is also very revealing of the way our ecosystem operates. So I see some comments also from peer and colleague leading EU platforms and EU project, and I see in particular the Ilona from European Talent Exchange. So again, we'll try to circulate resources that everybody can access. But for the last few minutes, I would really like to give the floor to Clara. You've been listening so carefully and quietly all these discussions, and I really would like to give you the floor for the next 10 minutes so you can actually share with us what are the takeaways you have.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I tried to organize a bit all the ideas that we have been discussing. So I would like to read some of them and then maybe talk a bit. So I'll start. One of the key topics raised was the definition of young and emerging artists as we started. Across different artistic fields, there are terms shared common characteristics. An emerging artist is not necessarily young in age, rather the concept is tied to professional development. Typically, it means having gained some national experience and taking the next step toward an international audience. Additionally, financial and geographical factors influence across two opportunities, with artists from certain regions facing more barriers than others. From my perspective, it means that mobility opportunities need to be adapted to each artistic discipline, ensuring that supportive mechanisms align with real career trajectories. However, it is important to note that this framework is largely Europocentric and rooted in Western perspectives. The challenges and realities faced by emerging artists who are not from Central Europe or the Western part of the continent, or who come from non-European countries, are often overlooked or not fully addressed within this context. Visibility emerged as one of the most pressing needs for artists. Beyond financial supports, artists seek platforms that allow them to showcase their work, meet curators, and exchange ideas with fellow artists. The chance to present work internationally, secure residencies, and develop independent projects help sustainable artistic careers. Many artists supported by these platforms continue collaborating with the networks and individuals they encounter, demonstrating that the long-term impact of these opportunities. With these, mobility opportunities are crucial for expanding artistic perspectives. More than just financial support, they provide an invaluable space for exchange and growth, reinforcing the importance of a continuous international presence rather than isolated opportunities. However, we also discussed several limitations for this kind of platforms. Financial support remains insufficient, especially for group applications where funding tends to be lower per person. Often the ambition of a project exceed both of the time frame and the financial resources available, making full realization difficult. Another key challenge is the individual artist's capacity to establish themselves within these networks. Simply being accepted in a platform or a program does not guarantee long-term success. It requires active participation, networking, and the ability to navigate professional relationships. So human skills remain crucial, as artists must be comfortable engaging with peers, curators, and institutions to maximize their opportunities. Other key challenge was balancing artistic freedom and the demands of the market. European funding programs provide essential support, yet they often impose rigid frameworks, prioritizing measurable outputs and deliverables over the creative process. Furthermore, there is growth tension between artistic mobility and environmental responsibility. Many platforms encourage travel and in-person exchanges, yet artists are increasingly aware of the need to reduce their carbon footprint and adopt sustainable practices. From my perspective, as a young emerging artist, expanding my practice beyond national borders has never been solely about financial support, although a lot. It has been about engaging and with inspiring projects, meeting incredible artists, and discovering initiatives that challenge and enrich my creative approach. These opportunities have allowed me to think beyond the limitations of a single artistic scene and connecting to a wider network of creators. Yet, I often find myself reflecting on a key question: how can we, as emerging artists, balance an artistic agenda that aligns with both national and European priorities, while also staying true to our own creative aspirations? In conclusion, these platforms offer visibility, foster networks, and enable artistic change, but they also come with structural challenges that requires ongoing adaptation. Furthermore, and I believe for me it's one of the most important ideas that I think we should say a lot and very often. I believe that the shift towards less competition and more cooperation is essential. The value of building supportive, collaborative environments for artists should not be underestimated. Artists should be encouraged to view of each other as colleagues rather than competitors, as such cooperation can lead to a more enriching and mutual beneficial cultural ecosystem. This approach, I feel, is a key to ensure a more sustainable and inclusive future for the arts across borders. It was a pleasure to hear you all talking.
Thank you very much, Clara, for this takeaways. It's very difficult exercise, as we know, to capture a conversation and to, on top of it, put a bit of ourselves and to share our own perspective. So thank you very much for doing this. I don't know if our panelists would like to comment on this summary. Do you feel something very, 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 very dear to your heart was forgotten? Odrija, Dina, yes, Iveta.
Yes, thank you, Clara. It was a really, really wonderful summary. There was only one thing that actually I didn't manage to reflect on the previous question. So I was thinking about this this homogeneous, like that we see Europe sometimes within these platforms as a homogeneous space, that we see like France and Latvia and Bulgaria as kind of, all equal systems. But then sometimes it's good also to think that we are so different, and the possibilities artists have in those spaces are very different. And then also about the long-term impact, like the systemic impact, like futures exist already like 7 years, but even then I feel that the long-term impact is still not reached. Like it's still a really short period of time, because it also, like from my perspective, it takes time to be involved with more artists. So it doesn't happen like immediately. It might happen in like 2, 3, 5, 7, I don't know how many years. So the actual impact might come with a really significant delay, and we don't know yet how it will actually influence the scene. But what I would love to see more, that it also thinks about this specific level of individual countries, and how this program can also contribute differently to the needs of specific geographical spaces or places. Sorry. So that's additional comment to the previous question. Thank you.
Thank you, Iveta. I think you are opening perspectives also, where we can, from Clara, also from Nicolas Bertrand, the idea of competition, but also I keep in mind also the idea of context-based approach and almost tailor-made approach, and how these engines that are, speaking volumes and trying to reach out to volumes can also, be very much closer to the individual or collective artists that are applying, that are following, that are evolving thanks to the support of these platforms. Well, I need to thank you, all of you, for your contribution. Thank you, Clara, of course, but also Efe, Dina, Iveta, and Odrija. And thank you to my colleagues, Bernardo and Marie, who has been very, very active posting comments and posting links during the entire conversations. For me, I would like to close this webinar announcing the two next, because it feels like this conversation is just what it is, the beginning of a bigger conversation around how do we support the next generation of artists and cultural professionals. So the next webinar will take place on 9th of April in the afternoon, Central European time at 3, and it will focus on mobility funders. We will have funders, giving away money, public funding. Now, it is also a very interesting question, a conversation to have with them and ask them questions. Why do they help the young and emerging? How they do that? What are their criteria? And how they see the evolution of the cultural ecosystem. And the third webinar, leading up to the forum, will be dedicated to the latest trends and the latest facts and figures, if you want, in the field. We will use the results and the takeaways from our yearly cultural mobility yearbook, but also the different mobility funding guides that we have been publishing very recently, and the one coming up on Nordic and Baltic countries, to share also takeaways in terms of what are the opportunities out there for artists when they want to work internationally. And when I say work, I mean also learn, be inspired, travel, etc. And what are the key trends? So what are the opportunities and trends for the young and emerging creatives? For these two conversations, obviously you can find out more on our website, you can register, etc. And we will have an international perspective. We will not, in a way, focus only on the European context, but we will really try to address the realities in different continents. So I think we are finishing on time, which is even before 5 minutes in advance, which is the first time. I like it. So thank you, everyone, for your attention and for being with us today. And I hope we will meet again for another pre-forum webinar. And I hope that many of you will be attending live in Riga or online, the actual forum taking place on the 29th and 30th of April at Riga Circus in Riga. Thank you very much and have a good day.